Good evening and welcome to the Township of Woolwich Committee of the Whole meeting on May the 9th, 2022. We are now live on YouTube. I will now do a roll call of council. I, Councillor Martin, am present and chairing this meeting. Mayor Shantz.
Present.
Councillor McMillan.
Present.
Councillor Merlehan.
Present.
Councillor Redekop. Councillor Shantz.
Present.
We'll do our land acknowledgement. The land on which we meet has been here from time immemorial. People have inhabited southern Ontario for about 10,000 years, and we acknowledge the people who lived here when settlers arrived and who share this land with us. May we together learn to care for and respect each other, our flora and fauna, and the land we inhabit together. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Mayor Shantz?
Thank you. I have pecuniary interest in 9.2. We own a property across the street from the gravel pit that's looking for the zone change.
Councilor Merlehan?
Yeah, through you, I have a pecuniary interest with 6.2, the summer patio on Mill Street. The Meyer BIA is a client.
Okay. There are no items to come forward from our closed session. There's no public meeting. Presentation, none. We have some delegations. I have some instruction. Next, we will hear from our delegates. Before we hear from our delegates, please be advised of the following instructions. Please leave your video and microphone off until you are called on to speak. Each speaker has a maximum of 7 minutes. There will be a timer on the screen, and when you hear the warning, you will have 1 minute and your time will be up. Once you are finished, please turn your microphone and camera off again. You may listen to the rest of the meeting or leave when you want. Council will hear from all speakers and ask questions of clarification. Council discussion and debate will start when all speakers on the topic have finished. So first we have Ann Crow. Please turn your video and microphone on and begin when you are ready. Welcome.
Oh, good evening, Mayor and councillors. Thank you for accepting my delegation this evening. I'm going to share my screen if that's possible. Let's see. So you should be able to see my slideshow.
Yes.
Okay, from the beginning. There we go. Okay. So this is actually an update. I came before council a few years ago. Just to give you a background on the Grand Watershed Trails Network, we're creating a network of connected trails following the Grand River and its tributaries from Dundalk to Lake Erie. It includes the river as a water trail, as well as land trails. And the goal at the present time is to get a connected cycling route from Dundalk to Lake Erie. And this is what we've come up with. So now we're going back to municipal councils to consult with all the various municipalities to make sure that the route that we've chosen works best for that municipality. So the little blue circles are the canoe access points. You can see there's a lot of places where you can access the river, and the trail goes pretty close to the river. And the red stars are things like dams where you have to do a portage. So I'm just going to briefly go over the whole trail. So the color coding, orange is a busy road. And as you can see, this is the northernmost headwaters section. There's very little busy roads. The black is a paved road and the gray is a gravel road. There's a very small bit of green, which is a multi-use trail, the Upper Grand Trailway. And this brown here is actually a trail that goes all the way to Owen Sound that will connect us to Owen Sound. It's being upgraded. At the moment, you can only walk on it. It's not cyclable, but they're working on upgrading it. So this gets you from Dundalk down to Bellwood Lake, which is the first place you can stick your canoe in the river, apart from Luther Marsh. In Centre Wellington, there's a great trail that actually goes all the way through Forks of the Credit down to Elora. And then they have an on-road trail that takes you all the way down to the Kissing Bridge Trailway. I'm going to skip our region and just go over the rest of it. From Paris to Brantford, there are two trails, Cambridge to Paris Rail Trail and the S.C. Johnson Trail, which are fabulous multi-use trails all the way to Brantford. And then Brantford and Brant County suggested that we do a loop. So we've added a little loop around Brantford, which takes you up both sides of the river and takes in some really interesting historical sites. And then finally, from Onondaga to Lake Erie, you can see there's a big orange section along the highway there, but Highway 54. They are actually putting in a paved shoulder, which will improve it. We have talked to Six Nations because we could go on the other side of the river, but obviously we have to, Six Nations has to be very comfortable with having us on their land. So at the moment, we're going down Highway 54. There's a really nice road on the west side of the river that takes you down to Dunville. And then Haldeman suggested that we split the trail and go down both sides of the river to Lake Erie. So the question in the region of Waterloo is, how do we get from West Montrose to the Cambridge to Paris rail trail? And there really were two options, Walter Bean and Trans-Canada. Unfortunately, as you know, the Walter Bean Trail is hiking only through Woolwich. And also in Kitchener, a lot of it is on private land and it's not up to standard. So Kitchener didn't feel that this was a suitable route for Kitchener either. So we're going with the Trans-Canada Trail through Waterloo region. And we talked to Waterloo and to Cambridge. And so they've suggested some loops, and we now have a Guelph connector using the Speed River Trail in Cambridge and a loop in Cambridge, and then a loop in Waterloo that takes in the Walter Bean Trail. So that's what we're planning for Waterloo region. And then, I mean, if we could get the Walter Bean going, we would have, I think this would be a really fabulous network of cycling trails throughout Waterloo region. I'd also like to point out, this is a screenshot of the Waterfront Trail. So the red is the Waterfront Trail, which goes all the way from Quebec and now goes right the way around Lake Ontario, Lake Erie, Lake Huron, and it's heading towards Lake Superior. The blue is the Grand River, and the black are the existing rail trails that connect us to the Waterfront Trail. So we really could be a key part of the whole cycling network for Southern Ontario. So I think this is really sort of the long-term vision of where we're going. So we recently got a new website. You're welcome to go to the website, www.grandtrails.ca. We have a video on the main page of the website, which shows some of the fabulous things you can see along the Grand River. And the maps are on the proposed trail is up on the website. The circles on the map are amenities. So for instance, this is a screenshot that zooms into St. Jacobs. I clicked on, what is it, Block 3 Brewing. And then if you click on the little circle, this will tell you the address, the phone number, and the little description. So the whole website is designed to be one stop where you can come and find out everything you need to know to come to the Grand River and paddle down the river or cycle or walking as well. Oops, there we go. So anyway, we're in the process of consulting with the various municipalities. We've had a very positive response so far, and the new website is going to provide information, and our staff advisory committee will be maintaining contact with local municipal staff. And so we've really come to Woolwich to see what you think about this. And that's my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Go. Council, are there any questions? Chance?
Thank you for the presentation. We've often talked about combined tourism with hiking, paddling and cycling, and we certainly have lots of places to do that. I think there was some concern at one point about the way the Walter Bean Trail would need to be maintained and or upgraded. Was that something that came from your work, or are you familiar with that? Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, there are some concerns about using the Walter Bean route through Woolwich. I did come up with an on-road trail that pretty much follows the Grand Valley Trail. So I think the decision in Woolwich was to use the Grand Valley Trail as a hiking trail, and it is a great trail. Some of it is on road, and it would be possible to detour. You do have to go on Catherine Street, which is a pretty busy road, but you could come up from Rim Park across the Buggy Bridge through Conestoga, and then in the back way into West Montrose with a short section on Catherine. So it's doable. I think it's something that's going to take more long-term work, whereas the Trans-Canada Trail exists. People know about it. It's in good condition. It's well signposted. So I think for the moment we'll be using Trans-Canada, but I'm a big fan of Walter Bean. I think the original idea was a cycling route right through Waterloo region, and I'd love to see that come to fruition in the, some point in the future.
So right now your route through Woolwich is on the Trans-Canada Trail. So you do have a route.
Yes, the route through Woolwich would be on the Trans-Canada Trail, which I think, and I've talked to Trans-Canada Trail and they're perfectly happy to share that with us.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Merlan?
Thank you. Through you to the delegate. The Grand Watershed Trails, is it kind of just, is this a mapping expedition where you're looking to map current trails to just connect people across Ontario, or are a lot of the trails that you're proposing here, do they still need to be built out?
What we've come up with is a connected route using existing trails. So some of it is on road, which is the Waterfront Trail does the same thing. You connect the trails that you have that are mostly managed by new municipalities, and then you just signpost a route across along roads to connect one to the other. So what we've really done, we haven't really created anything. All we've done is put it together so that somebody who wanted to ride from one end to the other has a functional route that they can take.
Okay, thank you. I guess my other question is there opportunities for the public then to have comment or provide any kind of suggestions for trail alternatives at this point?
Yeah, we have been consulting with various hiking groups and cycling groups, and there is a comment page on the website, and we have received some comments and questions from people from the website.
Okay, thank you.
Any other, Councillor Chance?
Thank you, through you, Ms. Crow. How does liability work on private property? I know there's some concerns with some farmers or anybody that owns private property as to whether they're liable if they have a trail running across their property. How does that work? Do you have insurance for that, or do they have to supply it?
We have some insurance, but we're not going on private property. I think the Grand Valley Trail uses private property, so that you'd have to ask them how they manage that. We're using municipal trails and roads.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions from council? Seeing none. Thank you, Ms. Crow.
Okay, thank you very much.
Please turn your video and microphone off. Next, we have our summer patio seating on Mill Street. before we hear from registered delegations. Economic Development and Tourism Officer Jenna Morse is here this evening to provide us with an overview on her report. Ms. Morse, please begin when you are ready.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Good evening, all. The report tonight brings forward a request from the Downtown Elmira BIA and surrounding businesses to once again close a portion of Mill Street for summer patio seating this season. Over the past years, the BIA has increased investment to the community seating area and reported increased use and positive feedback from users. It's important to note that with the Church Street reconstruction, Mill Street is being used as an unofficial bypass and that it could take a little while for road users to get used to. Sip and Bite have requested for the road to be closed for patio use by the May 2-4 long weekend, and the BIA are excited for the closure again this season. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions regarding the report respecting 2022 summer patio seating on Mill Street in Elmira.
Council, any questions? Councillor Shantz.
Thank you, through you to Jenna. The region has to get involved in this decision, do they not, as far as what happens on Arthur Street? And have we checked into that?
Thank you, Councillor Shantz, and through you, Chair. Yes, so the region is ready to go for our timing. It's just a matter of getting the official approval from council, and they're ready to go.
And they were okay because of the Church Street going to be closed. And how long is that closed for, that section?
That I would have to defer to infrastructure services.
Thank you. To you, Chair Martin, to Councillor Shantz. I'm not 100% aware of the end date, Councillor Shantz, but it's fair to say it's going to be the bulk of the summer. Anyway, it's likely won't be till the end of August, early September that we might be seeing that road, Church Street, reopened.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor McMillan.
Thank you, Chair Martin. Through you, Ms. Morse, you said that there may be some concern about this being an alternate route. Is this like something that is, hey, a real concern, or is this a, hey, this is something that's under the sun and council should be aware of this, but the staff recommendation is still that the road be closed?
I'll let Jared add anything if he wants to, but staff have connected, and it's really just for council to be aware. But for the main part, or for the most part, we are recommending that we close it again based on recommendation from BIA and surrounding businesses.
Chair, do you have any comments?
Through you, Chair Martin, to Councillor McMillan. I don't. It's just that it is being used unofficially as a detour route. It's not been signed that way, but obviously people find the path of least resistance. So closing Mill is just going to push motorists further south, probably to either Park or Wyatt Street, and just probably take a week or so for people to acclimatize again. No different than what happened when the region shut down Church in the first place. That's really the only issue. So everybody's still going to try to get to Duke Street, and they're just going to use an alternate Wyatt or Park is all that's going to happen.
Mayor Shantz.
Thank you. The actual detour is first to Duke, isn't it?
That's correct. Yes, through Chairman Martin, to Mayor Shantz, that is correct. Yeah, the officially signed detour is nowhere along local road that way, other than, like you said, it's first to Duke. So, and Union can be used as well if you're heading northbound, but we know that people find the most convenient route for them, and that's what tends to be the unofficial detour route, we'll say.
Sure, but they'll figure out soon enough that Mill Street's closed and take whatever other route they want to take. Yeah.
Correct.
Councillor Redekop.
Sorry, I think it's a great idea. It worked out really well last summer, and I appreciated being able to sit at those chairs. So thanks a lot, Jenna, and the rest of the BIA for wanting to do it again.
Are there any other questions? Thank you, Jenna. Next, we have John Clay representing the Downtown Meyer BIA. He's with us this evening. Mr. Clay, please turn your microphone and video on and begin when you are ready.
Councilor Reddecup, I'm just wiping tears from my eyes. Actually, I'm so happy at those comments. Okay, so thank you again for having me here. I always love to come and speak with you fine people. So through you, Chair Martin, I will share my screen if I could. I think we're good to go there. We are more than happy to bring this again, and we thought it was a great success last year. And I think as more people get to know what's happening in the downtown with this community seating, it will only get used that much more. As a bit of a review of some of the other things that the BIA is doing, just briefly, we have 6 applications for our facade improvement program. I spoke with our greenery project contractor today. We have a grant proposal, hopefully to go through. Jenna, thanks very much for your work this week for seasonal decor, so we can hopefully light up the downtown. The bench restoration project is happening, where we've removed, as you might have seen, some of the benches downtown, dropped them off at the school EDSS shop, and coordinated with them to get these restained and repainted. So something old and something new here for the BIA this year. But of course, this is about the Mill Street community seating, and the use of it, I think, was very obvious last year. I know you all should have a couple of submissions in your packages from good friend Johnson Tars is on the board, and Nida Schneider, who is the owner of Sip and Bite, and John owns Sweet Scoops across the street. So yes, of course, I think Nida would vote for the Mill Street closure, and Dave, because it offers them an opportunity to serve the community through their restaurant on the street patio, and it was a very successful venture for them. And for the community seating, I think it provides more than a place like Sweet Soups, the opportunity to sit and have a slice of pizza, or eat the food, or just read a book, enjoy just the downtown after going for a walk. And that's part of the reason that we put this together, such that there's space for people to go and have a place to sit. Some of the other pictures you can see, this is even on a day when after Sip and Bite had closed for the day, and lots of people using the space. Obviously, there's the painting of the mural in the background, which we feel really just provides some color and some brightness to the downtown as well. We'll probably do the same thing again with the planters, just the basic ones in and around. The greenery project is looking to set up anywhere from 10 to 14 stone planters right on Arthur Street, and fill them with annuals, and then have that as an ongoing project that the BIA will continue to sustain in years going forward. And really, that's about it. I wanted to show off some of the pictures of the street. I really appreciate the kind words from council, and also staff support on this. And I feel it's a great opportunity again for the downtown to support the community, get more families to see friendly spaces, and brighten up the downtown in the process. But I'm open to any other questions or comments if anybody would like.
Council members, Mayor Shantz.
Thank you. Thanks for your presentation, John. I think it's a great idea. I had a couple meetings there. It's a nice place to just sit and chill, if that's what you want to do, or eat, as you said, and it brightens up the downtown. I think what you did last year looked fantastic, and I know when I drive through other small towns and see planters and flowers sort of all coordinated, it just really makes it attractive. So I look forward to seeing those this year as well. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Shantz?
Thank you, through you to John. Has there been any discussion about making this permanent? This past weekend, this coming weekend, seems to be going to be a nice weekend. The last weekend was a really nice weekend. And has there been any discussion on that?
Through you, Chair, to you, Councillor Shantz. Is Dave on this call? Because I feel Dave Schneider is on this call somewhere, waiting for that. There has been talk on our board meetings about whether this could be a permanent and then seasonal changes as well too. Obviously, I don't think Dave and I are serving calamari on the patio in the dead of winter, but certainly for a seating area, maybe potential for fire bins the odd time, but who knows? It's been talked about, and how do I put this? It's felt up until maybe last year and right at this very moment that this has been a bit of a stretch in general about what we're trying to do here. And of course, we would like to take it to the next level. We'd love to have community seating and patios and flowers and bright colors everywhere, and that's the goal with things like art projects, the greenery project that we're doing. So we would certainly be opening to kick it around, and I would imagine at the next meeting it's probably going to come up now.
Okay, the reason I asked that because we seem to close it for a period of time and then open it, and we got to go through this every year. And there's some really nice days even in the heart of the winter, when there's snow on the ground, and I'm sure there's some organizations that would love to serve hot chocolate or something like that. So I just asked the question, wondering if that discussion has taken place.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're looking at the possibility for different events and things that we could have there. And at the very least, if we could maybe open up and maybe we set it up a little sooner, let it go a little later, maybe not the whole year. But we'd certainly be open to considering that if it may be something that council and staff is interested as well too. We know that there would be some pushback, but I think the issue that we're looking at here is the thoroughfare around Church Street is one thing, but there are going to be some naysayers that say, oh, I need the street and the street needs to happen, and you're going to close it for the whole year now. But there's also a part of me that would say once it's closed for a year or two, then no one would ever really remember. So.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor McMillan?
And thank you, Chair Martin, through you. I just can't let Mr. Clay come to council without thanking him for all the work he's doing with the BIA. John and Jenna, hats off to Jenna for all the work that she's doing. John had a nice laundry list there of exciting projects that the BIA is working on, and Jenna has hours of work put into every one of those, and they're all doing great things to improve our downtown. So hats off to the work of John, specifically our BIA generally, and Jenna on top of that. The work that's being done is fantastic, and to think about where we've come in a couple of short years, where closing a street would have seemed crazy to us 3 years ago. And the first year it was done hastily during COVID, and the BIA did the best that they could, but the execution kind of lacked the panache that made people want to do it again. And here we are in year 3, and it's so awesome to hear Councillor Sean say, maybe we should do this all year like this. And that's the right kind of thinking that we need to rejuvenate and bring some vibrancy to our downtown. So thank you, John. Thank you, Jenna, and thank you to all of the BIA.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Clay. Please turn your video and microphone off. There is a recommendation in the report. Is there any discussion, or would anybody like to move the recommendation? Mayor Shantz? Somebody would second it? Councillor Shantz? Any further discussions? Council Shantz?
Yes, thank you. I was wondering if council would support me in suggesting that maybe staff could come back with a report to see what this would look like if they closed it for the whole year. I know there's going to be some things they have to navigate around snow removal and a few things like that in the winter time, but maybe if council would be willing, they could come back with some of that information and we could talk about it at a later date.
I didn't hear. All those in favor of the recommendation?
Oh.
Opposed?
Timeout. Sorry, timeout. Chair Martin, was Councillor Shantz adding that to an amendment to the recommendation?
I don't think so. It's just a comment.
Sorry, I was trying to get some support from council to get a report, maybe not changing the motion here, but bring a report back in the future if the rest of council so wishes.
That can be direction to staff. We're dealing with the recommendation. All those in favor? That's carried. Peel Street Bridge, design recommendation.
Sorry. Yeah, we can't.
I think we did. You want to do it formally?
Mhm.
Yeah. I think that was clear. Before we hear from registered delegations, engineering project supervisor Ryan Tucker is here this evening to provide an overview of his report to council.
All right. Good evening, Chair Martin, Mayor Shantz, and Woolwich councillors. I'm here this evening to present staff report IS 12-2022 with the intent of obtaining council's approval to move forward with the design concept as presented in the report for the Peel Street Bridge pedestrian conversion. On February 23rd, 2021, council passed a resolution directing staff to finalize the environmental assessment for the Peel Street Bridge as a pedestrian rehabilitation. Since then, staff have been working with the township's consultant, GM Blue Plan, to solicit public feedback and prepare a preliminary concept for the pedestrian conversion. Staff hosted a virtual public consultation center in October 2021, where different options for the pathway layout, as well as decking materials and railing options were presented. Based on the feedback staff received from the public consultation center, the project team prepared the initial concept, which includes a 2.4 meter wide walkway, which is centered on the structure. The concept also includes a congregation area on the bridge, which would be approximately 3.6 meters wide by 10 meters in length. And that would be centered over the center pier of the bridge. So be in the center of the existing bridge. This area will provide a spot for photos and allow visitors to take in views of the beautiful river. The decking is proposed to be constructed of wood, similar to the existing structure, and would have a conventional railing. The design was reviewed. The design was reviewed for the anticipated pedestrian loading, and a congregation limit will not need to be posted on the structure. So that was a win for the team there. I also wanted to highlight to council that GM Blue Plan visited the structure in early spring to perform additional measurements and review the condition of the structure. At that time, GM Blue Plan identified additional members on the structure that do require replacement through the conversion works. These members were originally thought to be adequate when they were reviewed in 2017, which was the initial inspection of the bridge, but were subsequently deemed to be deficient after further review this year. So that's going to have some budget impact on the bridge. Staff also received a few requests through the public consultation process to allow snowmobile access to the structure following the conversion to the pedestrian standard. Staff are not recommending allowing snowmobile access to the structure due to concerns with motorized vehicles and pedestrians sharing the same facility. Based on conversations between staff and the township's insurance provider, allowing snowmobiles to use a pedestrian facility creates a scenario where a pedestrian could be harmed, which could lead to claims against the township. So to reiterate, staff are recommending that council endorse the design concept as presented in the report, which includes a centered walkway, 2.4 meters wide with a congregation in the center of the bridge, which would be, the decking would be wood and it would contain a conventional rail. So with that, I will take any questions that council may have.
Council, any questions for Mr. Tucker? Council Merlan?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Martin, through you to Mr. Tucker. Are there any concerns right now on timeline for starting the construction? I know a while back there was some concern that this might get pushed into 2023. Just wonder if you can speak to that.
Yeah, to you, Councillor Monahan, through Chair Martin. Staff are, so that's why we're in front of you tonight to get the approval for the design so we can move forward with completing the design, with anticipating tendering the works in late 2022. This will allow the contractor to work over the winter if they do wish, because there are in water timing works for the work on for the pedestrian conversion. But the work would be completed, the majority of work would be completed in 2023.
Okay, and then my second question would be regarding the costs. The report, talked about some deterioration that wasn't counted on. And then I was just thinking with the way our pricing has been coming in this year on other projects, what do you anticipate we might be over?
Through you, Chair Martin, to Councillor Merlihan. At this point, I don't have a number. I know the additional steel members, which was additional 30 members approximately. I think I had a cost of about $200,000. So we're at least that for those additional steel members into the budget. But I'd have, again, we have to come up with the final concept, and then I'd have to get an engineer's cost estimate to provide council with an actual budget estimate for the construction.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Shantz.
Thank you, through you to Mr. Tucker. I guess my big concern is the one paragraph that says the structure continues to degrade at a fast rate. And we've got 4 times the number of tension members since the last inspection of 2017. And what does that mean going into the future? Is this going to be an ongoing cost every couple of years when we do our annual or our biannual inspections, or if we fix these 37, are the other ones going to be okay?
Yeah, through you, Mayor, sorry, through you, Chair Martin, to Councillor Shantz. So staff are going to review, there's a total of 72 diagonal members. As you mentioned, I think we're at 37 that needs to be replaced. We are going to review when we do finalize the design and we move to that tender phase, whether it makes sense to replace all those members at that point. Understanding that when it comes to reviewing the structure every 2 years and identifying members that need to be replaced, it could be fairly expensive if we only need to do 1 or 2 on the bridge. So staff will look at it at that point, and if there is an economy of scale and it makes sense to replace all of them, we would recommend that at the tendering phase. That's something we could provide, like we can put as provisional in the tender, and then depending on pricing, we could move forward with that as well.
And is that the only part of the structure that is deteriorating, or is the rest of the structure deteriorating as well?
To you, Chair Martin, to you, Councillor Shantz. As far as I'm aware, those were the only members that were identified that had not previously been identified as having major deterioration.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Martin, I think we want to loop back to Mill Street after this discussion as well.
Any other questions for Mr. Tucker? Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Next, we have Les Bauman representing the Bridgeport Snowmobile Club with us this evening. Mr. Bauman, please turn your microphone and video on and begin when you are ready.
Yeah, Chair Martin and members of the Committee of the Whole, thank you for allowing me time to express my concerns about certain aspects of the Peel Street Bridge Pedestrian Conversion Report. My name is Les Bauman, and I have been an avid snowmobiler since 1969. I was a director of the Ontario Federation of Snowmobile Clubs in the mid-1980s and was head of the OFSC Trail Patrol for 25 clubs in District 5 and an instructor and administrator of the program for 30 years. I snowmobiled average of about 3,000 to 4,000 kilometers per year, depending on snow condition. I've been a part of the Bridgeport Snowmobile Club since moving to this area in 1979. As you probably know, Snowmobiling is a large contributor to travel and tourist industry in Ontario. There are many areas snowmobilers can travel to, with approximately 28,000 kilometers of trails that are signed and maintained in the province. I am specifically concerned about the recommendation that no snowmobile access will be provided or allowed over the Peel Street Bridge. The report indicates two reasons why snowmobiles should not be allowed: the potential of vehicle pedestrian accident to occur on the structure, and the high rate of speed at which snowmobiles can travel. Regarding concern about accidents, I would like to point out that the Peel Street Bridge has been part of the Bridgeport Snowmobile Club OFSC trail system for approximately 45 years plus. During this time, there were cars, trucks, pedestrians, sometimes walking their dogs, and cross-country skiers at the same time as snowmobiles were crossing. To the best of my recollection, I am not aware of any accident with pedestrians or other vehicles on the bridge during this time. I've confirmed this with longtime club member Nick Wetzel and our club president Peter Zettel. The Bridgeport Snow Club also has a OFSC trail, which is located on the old railway line from Eris to Woolwich Road. This is a multi-use trail with cross-country skiers, pedestrians walking their dogs, which both enjoy having access to a groomed trail. This trail has been in use for over 20 plus years. We are not aware of any accidents with other vehicles or pedestrians during this time period. Generally, I find that pedestrians and skiers will step to the side of the trail when they hear snowmobiles approaching. Also, snowmobilers will slow down out of respect to pedestrians. This report also comments on the high rate of speed snowmobilers can travel. I would point out that cars, trucks, and motorcycles also can travel at high rates of speed. I find that most snowmobilers are respectful of others and travel at a safe rate of speed. Considering the past history of 45 plus years in crossing the Peel Street Bridge and 20 plus years of operating the Eris multi-use trail without accidents or incidents with pedestrians has produced a good safety record for snowmobilers and our club. Why would this not continue into the future? A safety issue may also be created by not allowing snowmobilers to cross over the Peel Street Bridge. It may encourage snowmobilers to cross over the ice, which may not necessarily be safe and may have open water portions that they try to skip over. The Chalmers Bridge at Middlebrook Place is closed, and I understand it is slated for removal. This was also a snowmobile trail crossing in past years. This eliminates another crossing point of the Grand River for snowmobilers. To get to the west side of the Grand River, snowmobilers must proceed north to the 8th line and cross over 2 Inverhaw bridges. The trail continues here to north of Elmira and onward. I'm asking that council reinstate access to the snowmobile trail over the Peel Street Bridge. In the past, snowmobilers would come from Cambridge, Bridgeport, Maryhill areas and proceed west over the bridge to Conestoga Lake, Listowel, Stratford, and complete the loop and return home. Also provides a fairly direct route for snowmobiles from Elmira, St. Clements, New Hamburg, Wellesley to travel east to Maryhill, Cambridge, or north to Elora and loop around home for a nice day run. Should council elect to redesign the drawings to accommodate snowmobiles and keep pedestrians separated from them, good signage instructions should accomplish this, as pedestrians would usually step aside and watch as snowmobiles pass by. This has been our past experience on the Peel Street Bridge and the Eris multi-use rail line. If it is determined a 2-path be required, with one being exclusive to snowmobiles, separation could similarly be accompanied by a good signage and a few removable small stakes, posts placed in a sleeve or other means to fasten to the deck in the center line. This would be sufficient to separate the paths. The stakes posts could easily be removed at the end of the snowmobiling season, thereby making the complete path available to pedestrians and cyclists for the rest of the year. This method of separation should not be very expensive to construct. I believe snowmobilers would respect this means of separation. The Bridgeport Snowmobile Club could be responsible for installing and dismantling these stakes each year. Considering that the proposed total path width is 2.4 meters. This allows for only 1.2 meters for snowmobile traffic and does not allow space for snowmobiles to pass oncoming traffic. This problem could be resolved by installing signal lights similar to those used on road construction to allow for a one-way traffic. As the bridge was closed over 2 to 3 years ago for pedestrian and snowmobile use, this effectively closed our snowmobile trail. The Bridgeport Club would have to apply to the OFSC to have the snowmobile trail reinstated and contact landowners to renew permissions. However, prior to doing this, we have to know that the township will grant the Bridgeport Snowmobile Club permission to establish a snowmobile trail over the Peel Street Bridge. In closing, I want to thank you for considering this request.
Thank you, Mr. Council. Questions? Mayor Johnson?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Would the groomer groom across the bridge?
No, it wouldn't be able to do that. There are smaller groomers, but you get 4 feet. That's pretty close. But no, that wouldn't be groomed. It would just be unless we had a smaller groomer like the old style that would go down. But I don't know if any of those are around or not.
But the snowmobiles would essentially pack the trail down so that other users could use it. I think the staff report said it was going to be unmaintained.
Yeah, there wouldn't be any maintenance on the bridge in the wintertime, is my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Councilor Shantz?
Thank you. I don't really have questions, just a couple of comments. And you talked about the existing design only being 2.4 meters wide, and the snowmobile is a 1.3 meters wide, so that leaves a half a meter on each side of the machine. So you're right, they wouldn't be able to cross 2 machines going in opposite directions, but you wouldn't even be able to share that with pedestrians, would you?
Through Chair Martin to you. I guess what the idea is that pedestrians would have the other side to use during the wintertime and snowmobiles exclusively on one side. And so the other side would be for pedestrians to walk or cross country skiers or whatever to do their thing.
Okay, so you're talking about a different design altogether.
Well, no, what I'm talking about is just using the same layout of 2.4 meters, but basically putting in half. And if they wanted, like normally I think snowbirds would stay back, or residents that are on the walk on the trail or whatever. But if you want to have a clean delineation of the center line, then I thought the easiest way could be is to have stakes maybe 4 or 3 feet high, 4 feet high, and there would be a sleeve in the bottom. You can just slide the stakes in there, and that would delineate the trail in the wintertime. When the season is finished, we come along and pull out the stakes, and then the whole bed is available for use of the general public.
Okay, I guess I'm a little disappointed we didn't hear from this sooner when we were trying to do a bridge design. If you were following, you would know that Councilor Martin and I were the 2 councilors that were trying to get the bridge to a multimodal bridge, and I think that has changed to pedestrian only, that the council has decided to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Mr. Baumann? Thank you, Mr. Baumann. Please turn your video and microphone off.
Thank you.
There is a recommendation in the report. Is there any discussion, or would anyone like to move the recommendation? Moved by Mayor Shantz. You're not moving? You got a question? Go ahead.
This question is for staff. Ryan, hi. Can you speak to the availability of space for a snowmobile to cross on the bridge as it's designed, please?
Yeah, through you, Chair Martin, to Mayor Shantz. The way so council passed a resolution for a pedestrian conversion. So staff has proceeded with that in mind. The current layout is not designed for snowmobile access. There is proposed for pedestrian gates at either end of the bridge that would stop any motorized vehicles from accessing the structure. So as is typical across the township, we don't allow motorized vehicles on any of our pedestrian facilities. So staff have proceeded with the design concept with that in mind.
If we wanted to allow snowmobiles to cross, is there room?
Through you, Chair Martin, to you, Mayor Shaw, there physically is room, if that's the question. They could fit across. Staff's recommendation is that that's not safe because it is a pedestrian facility and motorized vehicles should not be sharing a pedestrian facility.
Snowmobile trails exist all across Ontario, and pedestrians share those snowmobile trails with us. So it works both ways. In many places, it's the snowmobile trails that pedestrians and skiers are using. So I think snowmobiles and pedestrians are used to working together and sharing trails. That'd be my comment.
Councilor Merlan?
Yeah, through you, Chair Martin, just some comments. You know, this bridge, we've all made a lot of difficult decisions on it. We all did not agree on those decisions that came through. One of the hard decisions was not allowing Mennonites to cross the bridge. Mennonites that live directly within walking distance of the bridge and could have used that. But, you know, council decided that it would be pedestrian only for lots of various reasons, the biggest one being price and longevity of the heritage structure. So I think to allow snowmobiling right now and advocating for that, you know, for a sport, you know, important sport that I certainly see the benefits of for, you know, maybe 2 months of the year to make concessions on that is one thing. But then, you know, we did make the decision that horse and buggy access wouldn't be available either. So I think I'd be prepared to move the recommendation as staff has written.
Is somebody prepared to second it? Fred? Is there any further discussion? Councilor Shantz?
Yes, thank you. Just some comments, and I have to agree with Councilor Merlan that we did make some tough decisions. And yeah, and I don't think it is safe to have both pedestrians and snowmobiles crossing that the way it's designed, because it's a fairly long structure. And if a pedestrian gets halfway, or a skier or whomever gets halfway and a snowmobile comes along, there's no place for them to pass, because like I said, if we want to talk English terms, it's 6 feet wide and the snowmobile is 4 feet wide. So it only leaves 2 feet besides. So there's not enough room for that to happen. So I think we have to keep it strictly for pedestrians and cyclists.
Councilor McMillan?
Thank you, Chair Martin. Through you, when we decided to make it pedestrian only and keep horse and buggies off of it, Mayor Shantz fought pretty hard to have horse and buggies allowed, and staff told us repeatedly that you couldn't have horse and buggies and exclude cars, that there was no choice between having it full automobile traffic or no horse and buggy. So I don't think that it's accurate to say that at any time we decided to make it just pedestrian. What we did decide to do was to not include automobiles because of the added cost, because of the added weight that was required. And what we were told was there was no way to exclude full-ton pickup trucks and allow small sedans. That if we were making it for small sedans, then we had to allow for farm equipment and full-size pickup trucks. So that decision was never made. I understand that's a consequence of other decisions that were made, that we decided not to rehabilitate the bridge as an automobile bridge, and that Mennonites, unfortunately, horse and buggy Mennonites were excluded because of that decision. I think that there's room here to explore this, whether it's dividing it, having signals. One of the things that I'd be interested in is the delegate said that they were willing to put up the stakes and all that kind of stuff. I think they should also be willing to assume all of the cost. And I think that we should get legal advice about any liability, but I would be willing to not close the door on this, because I think that it does seem more reasonable than rehabilitating the vehicle or rehabilitating the bridge for all vehicular traffic. So I'm going to vote against the recommendation as voted. It seems like it's got a lot of support. So I'm not going to propose anything different, but I will vote against it for that reason.
Any other discussion? Mayor Shantz?
Yeah, I think Councillor McMillan articulated well our discussion previously, and I think the decision was a cost-driven decision to make it the size that it is. And as I said, I know snowmobile trails go across lots of narrow bridges, lots of long bridges, short bridges, all kinds of bridges, and share those with pedestrians without incident. And so I don't see a problem with allowing snowmobiles across it for a couple of months of the year when it will be less used by cyclists and so on at that time anyway. So I don't think that I think I can vote in favor of this recommendation, but I would also like to see it opened for snowmobiles. I don't think it changes the design, but maybe I'll check with Mr. Tucker on that. Would it change the design?
Yeah, through you, Chair Martin, to Mayor Shantz. If it is council's will to allow snowmobiles on the structure, I think due to the way that we did finalize the EA as a pedestrian conversion, we would have to open the EA again to allow motorized vehicles on the structure. I'd have to get confirmation on that. Opening up the EA is fairly simple. We would file an amendment, go back out for public consultation, and then look to finalize the EA to allow snowmobile access. So that's one of those parts. The other part would be we would have to have our consultant look at the bridge just to determine how best to allow snowmobiles on it. Staff's original recommendation was to do two separate facilities, one for pedestrians and one for actual snowmobiles, so that there is no chance of anyone getting hit or anything like that out there. There's also the concern snowmobile require different barriers on a bridge due to impacts and things like that. So the barriers on the side that would allow snowmobiles would have to be different than the pedestrian side. So just wanted to bring that to council's attention as well.
Just for clarification, are e-bikes a motorized vehicle?
Through you, Chair Martin, to you, Mayor Shantz. I'm not sure how to answer that. I'm not under the Highway Traffic Act. They don't need a license, so I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to get back to you on that one.
Councillor Shantz?
I would like to remind council, when this discussion was going on, it got brought to a sudden closure. We didn't get any extra designs. We requested some designs that would allow all of this to happen, and it was shut down by council quite quickly. So I can't see how we can open this up again and change the rules and regulations when council decided that it was going to be for pedestrian and cyclists only. And if we're going to open up the EAA, then I think we have to open up the whole can of worms and start over.
Councilor McMillan?
Yeah, that's a fair point, Councillor Shantz. I think that when we heard the report originally and heard the delegation, there was nothing about reopening the EA. So I think that would certainly change things if we're scrapping the design and starting over. But it's I'm a little frustrated, I guess, that wasn't part of the original discussion, because I think you make a valid point. And if that is part of allowing snowmobiles on the bridge, then of course that changes the metrics of the decision-making process. But is that the case, or is this just a matter of the safety concern, which was originally discussed? And yes, if we're having two separate bridges, I don't think there's a lot of support on council to have two separate bridges, one for snowmobiles for 2 months of the year and one for pedestrians. But it didn't sound like that was what was required when we first heard the report. So I guess I'm just a little bit confused at this point about where we stand here.
Councilor Redekop?
Yeah, through you, Chair Martin, to Mr. Tucker. Councillor Merlehan talked about when would this be rehabilitated, and so if we open up the EA, how much delay would that be, and extra costs about doing that? Thank you.
Yeah, through Chair Martin to Councillor Redekop. To file an amendment for the EA, like I said, we'd have to go out for public consultation. So I would assume we'd probably be at least a month or two. So we would send out a notice to the public that the EA is being opened again, issue a notice to the public that there'd be another public consultation center, undertake the public consultation center, again, take all public feedback, and then staff would prepare a recommendation report to council at that point, which would finalize that the EA at that point again. So I would anticipate at least 2 to 3 months to get through that process. In terms of additional costs, I'd have to confirm that with my consultant, but just off the top of my head, it'd probably be around $10,000 to do that again.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Shantz?
Yeah, I don't have any interest in reopening the EA if that's what it takes. I think that sounds a little over the top, but I have no interest in opening the EA, and I have to go with staff's best advice on that.
Any further discussion? The recommendation before us has been moved and seconded. All those in favor? That's carried. Consent items. Before we pass a motion to approve and receive the consent agenda as a whole, does anyone wish to remove any items for further discussion? Seeing none, is somebody prepared to move to accept these? Patrick? Somebody would second it? Larry? All those in favor? That's carried. Staff reports and memos. Disconnect from work policy. This evening, we have Human Resources Generalist Shelley Noble with us to provide council with an overview of her report. Shelley, welcome.
Thank you, Councilor Martin. Chair Martin. Earlier this year, the Ontario government made changes to the Employment Standards Act, requiring employers to have a written policy on disconnecting from work for all employees. Disconnecting from work is defined in the ESA to mean not engaging in work-related communications, including emails, telephone calls, video calls, or sending and reviewing other messages, and to be free from performance of work. The current legislation does not specify what is required to be within the disconnecting from work policies. However, it does require that there be a written policy with respect to disconnecting from work. along with some administrative matters, including posting notice and policy retention. The draft policy has been developed based on best practices. It must be in place by June 2nd, 2022. The policy is required to be reviewed prior to March 1st on an annual basis and updated accordingly as per updated legislation. Staff are asking council to approve the disconnect from work policy, as the policy aligns with our current approach to providing overall employee health and wellness by providing employees with a better work-life balance. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions regarding report C12 2022.
Council members, any questions? Council Merlan?
Thank you. Thank you through you, Chair Martin, to Ms. Noble. When I think of the disconnect policy, when it comes to, let's say, council members, I know I get calls from residents at night, on weekends, all the time, and generally I'll craft up an email, at the same time for staff to answer. For years, if it's after hours, I'll say like, this can wait till Monday or whenever, because I don't have those expectations where I need the information immediately. But I don't, a lot of times, even when I say that, staff do send me emails on the weekends, after hours and such. I don't know if they are feeling compelled to satisfy a council member and doing it that way. I certainly don't have those expectations. But how does the report speak to staff working with a council, any member of council that is just sending emails over the weekend, or are we supposed to abide by the rule by waiting till 9 to 5 hours, Monday to Friday?
Through you, Chairman Martin, to Councillor Merlihan. The policy currently, with the new implementation, you are still okay to send emails at any time. It's the expectation that the employee is not required to answer and only respond during their normal working hours. However, if they choose to do so over and above their normal working hours, that is on them. We have our policy on the hours of work, and that is what we're going to emphasize right now, is reiterate our hours of work. Managers are going to reiterate normal working hours with the employees when this policy is rolled out.
Okay, so there will be talk about dealing with council members in particular, just because our questions can come at all times and whenever. Okay.
Correct.
I do state that as much as possible, because I realize that people are on their own time on weekends and after hours, and I don't expect anybody to do municipal work after that. But even when I say it, I do get those emails. I do appreciate staff sending those emails, but it is not expected from me. So just to make that on the public record. Thanks.
Any other questions? Councillor McMillan?
Thank you, Chair Martin. Through you, could there be some ongoing review about some of the things that the Councillor Merlihan touches on? Because I think there are some things that are, emergencies. Like we might get called from, a constituent that says they have a sewer backup in their basement, and they're having sewage pour into their basement, and it's Friday at 5:05, and letting them know that we'll address it first thing Monday morning might not be sufficient. But if it's other things like, I'm having trouble getting people with a service locate or something like that, that can certainly wait. So could there be some ongoing communication and engagement between staff and council, as far as, this is an email that perhaps could use the delayed send feature and have it send out Monday? Because if I wait, on Friday night, if I wait until Monday to send the email, it's not happening. I got to use the delayed send feature. But perhaps staff can work with council to help us, understand which ones can wait until Monday and which ones are appropriate to send out whenever.
Through you, Chairman Sean or Martin, to Councillor McMillan. Yes, there can be. There is also the stipulation that with our hours of work, we still have our on-call staff. So emergency situations, for example, water, wastewater would still be on call. So we do still have those situations in place. But we are required to review this policy on a yearly basis. So if there is a requirement to add or delete, change, make any changes, we have to do that by March 1st every year, and we can implement that as we go. So it's going to be a work in progress as we go with this.
Thank you.
Any other, Councillor Shantz?
Thank you. Through you to Ms. Noble. So what is the expectation of staff then using both Councillor Merlehan's and Councillor McMillan's scenarios? Are they to still leave their devices on and ready to receive some of those emails? Because if it is an emergency and they turn the device off, that doesn't do us any good neither. So how can we make sure that they're available during an emergency?
Through your Chairman Martin to Councillor Shantz. We have sorry, I'm not sure how to answer it because it's two very different scenarios. For emergencies, we have our own calls for different departments. They would be your number one stop. We also have our managers and our senior leadership teams who can be contacted for dire emergencies as well. For just general emergencies, like Councillor Merlehan had discussed, if you're just sending an email that does not need a response, the employees will check their emails when they return to work on Monday during their normal business hours. It can also be defined through the hours of work, through our hours of work policy and communications within the departments of what the expectations are. So if there's something that we're not meeting, we can discuss it and look at it then.
If I could do a follow-up then. So what about the possibility of having the emergency number that we could contact or whatever, and then it could direct us to who is ever on call for that period of time, either a weekend or evenings? Because we would not know, or I would not know who the person is that's on call during an emergency.
And sorry, through you, Chairman Martin, to Councillor Shantz. Sorry, I'm just confused. Are you talking you do not have our current numbers? We just need to, is it a situation where we need to make that known?
No, I'm suggesting that I wouldn't want to use the regular cell phone number if they're not on call. If we had a central number that we could phone and it would direct us to whomever is on call for that period of time, and then we wouldn't have to interrupt somebody that is not on call.
I believe we could send an email as well, because all of our emails will go to our phone, but I will check into that. Staff will look into that. Maybe it's just defining our policy and making it clear for how and what we do in an on-call emergency situation.
Mr. Brenneman, welcome. Did you have a comment?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this as a senior management team. How are we going to operationalize this policy? You know, how do we make it work the best? And hopefully this will help maneuver, you know, between Councillor Merlehan's comments and Councillor McMillan's comments. You know, basically, you know, and there was a good recent example of this, and Scott, you'll appreciate this. The notion would be, if we really want staff to disconnect, they're not looking at their emails or their texts. So if there's a major emergency and we're going to have to feel our way through this, you're making a phone call. You're making a phone call either to the appropriate senior management team player or Councillor Shantz, as you've noted, we need to make sure, obviously, that we have an appropriate on-call number that is shared with members of council. But I think ultimately the way we need to feel our way through this policy is to make sure that staff don't feel they need to be connected to email, text, everything. there's an understanding that if a member of council phones, it has to be a major emergency. And again, we'll have to feel our way through that. But I mean, a good case in point was Councillor McMillan, wasn't exactly sure who to reach out to the other weekend. Sugar Kings had a situation, the game could have been canceled. Anyways, we got it fixed. I think in those situations, that's a good example of where an email or a text might not have worked, but a phone call is, to heighten the sense of urgency, that this is an emergency that staff have to respond to. So hopefully that helps. But as Shelley has noted, we are going to have to feel our way through this. But certainly I think what we're trying to do is set our expectations with our direct reports, that we don't expect you to be monitoring your phones and your emails, but leave your phone on, because if there's an emergency, somebody's going to phone. So hopefully that helps.
Any other discussion? Councillor McMillan?
Thank you, Chair Martin, through you. I love the idea of having one emergency number for council that, senior team could take turns monitoring, if there's 6 people that, once every 6 weekends, they have to monitor it. And then, if other people have to be brought in at that point, I don't know if there's like a special bat signal or something that the senior team could have between them or something, but like just one number that council could call after hours that, it doesn't have to be everybody, and we don't have to try to figure out, is it worth bothering the person, but knowing that, hey, there's one person that will answer the call if we're unsure, or if we know for sure that it's an emergency.
Councillor Shantz?
Yeah, thank you. And at no time did I want to suggest that everybody should be available 24/7. I was just making a couple of comments as to how it can be handled. I appreciate what staff does now. They do an excellent job, and I too get return emails that I say, don't worry, do it on Monday, and it always happens. So I appreciate that, but I just wanted to make sure that we weren't going to close the door and everything.
Councillor McMillan?
McMurlahan, that's a new one. I was just going to move the recommendation as written.
Somebody prepared to second it? Any further discussion? Yep. Mayor Shantz. I'll ask a question. All those in favor? That's carried. Okay, next. Cost sharing agreement between the township, city of Cambridge, and the region. Upsize the sanitary trunk sewer. Did I miss something here? Okay. Yes, I did. I apologize for that. Zone change application for Raymond Kuntz haulage. We have manager of planning, Jeremy Vink, with us to provide council with an overview of his report. Jeremy.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Members of council, this is the zone change for Raymond Kuntz haulage. It's a property at 889 Bridge Street West in the township. They've had an operating gravel pit for a number of years, since 2006, and have been having a temporary use on the property since about the time they opened. They have to renew their temporary use every 3 years. Right now, this is one of their renewals. So they have completed phase 1, and they're nearing completion of phase 2 of the gravel pit, and they're going into phase 3, which is the final phase. At one point, we weren't sure they're going to move into phase 3 or not, but they are proposing to move into phase 3 and continue to extract all the gravel. As such, they're wishing to continue with the topsoil operation as an ancillary use. So it's secondary to that gravel pit operation. Once the gravel pit operation winds down or disappears, the temporary use has to cease and disappear. There's a number of requirements in the zoning about how much material can be on site, how much they can take into on site, and how big it can be relative to the gravel pit operation. Generally, they have been staying in compliance with those regulations, and we're continuing with that. Staff is recommending support for another 3-year temporary use. We're getting to the point though that at some point in the future, we may not support it and say they have to start winding down because the pit is starting to end its lifespan and they need to remove the amount of topsoil they've accumulated on the site at that time. The applicant did also ask for some additional land area to store the topsoil. Staff doesn't support that additional land to go from 1 hectare to 1.25. We did speak to the applicant about it and they have agreed to stay with the 1 hectare size. As such, you see the recommendation to continue as previous with the temporary use bylaw for another 3 years. If there's any questions, staff is willing to answer them.
Council, any questions? Council Merlehan?
Yeah, thank you, through you, Chair Martin, to Mr. Vink. Reading the report and just some of your comments, is this a property or a gravel pit that the township is concerned of, perhaps prolonging the life of the gravel pit from the intended amount of time and maybe going a little bit slower? I see that phase 3 is the smallest section of gravel. What do you anticipate the timeline on extracting the gravel if they proceed on the same timeline that they have with phase 1 and 2? So I guess there's a couple questions in there. I don't know if you keep that together.
So sure, through you, Councillor Martin, Chair Martin to Councillor Merlehan. So I anticipate phase 3 is going to take a number of years. Well, I expect well in excess of 3. I'm assuming it'll be slower in time because the material there doesn't, from what I understand, appear to be as good quality as phase 1 and 2. So there's going to be a little less maybe use of when this material will come out. So I expect it to be for probably 6-8 years, maybe sitting there before they maybe are depleting this pit. Do I think it's going to prolong the pit by extending the temporary use? No, because the way the zoning structured, they have to report to staff every year and make sure they meet the zoning requirements that the amount of topsoil doesn't exceed 40% of the material that's being trucked off the site. So there's no encouraging manner, there's nothing encouraging them to keep the pit open just for the topsoil operation if they're operating legally. And like I mentioned, we're potentially at that point, maybe even the next renewal, that staff won't report the renewal of the of trucking in material. It'll be only that they have to utilize the material that's on site and sell what's left so they can start depleting the site of topsoil.
Okay, and as a follow-up, what is the end plan for this gravel pit? Will it be returned to farmland, or maybe you could speak to that?
So yes, there is a rehabilitation plan approved by the province. The plan is to revert the lands back to an agricultural use at this time. So when they're completed, the site will be topsoiled. There will be growing some crops on to regenerate the topsoil again for agricultural purposes, and it should go back to an agricultural property of growing of crops.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jeremy. There is a recommendation before us. Is somebody prepared to move it? Larry, somebody would second it? Fred? I'll call the question. All those in favor? I think that's carried. Okay, next we'll get into our cost sharing agreement between the township, city of Cambridge and region, upsize a sanitary trunk sewer. We have with us our Director of Infrastructure Services, Jared Poupé. Jared, floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman Martin. Through you to members of council, I'm a poor stand-in for Deanne tonight, but this is really a housekeeping issue. We did show monies in the 2021 budget in anticipation of protecting sewage capacity for Woolwich. It came to fruition just recently this year, and council did approve in the 2022 capital plan monies for the capacity allotment for Woolwich. So this is a lot of work behind the scenes with staff crafting this agreement and dealing with the city of Cambridge and the region of Waterloo, notably the airport. So there's a lot of good information contained in the report. And really what just I want council to be aware of, we're looking for authorization to have mayor and clerk sign. The funding for all of this capacity allotment is going to be from the development charges fund. It will take a number of years for the sewer to make its way to Woolwich's door. And that can all change, obviously, depending on what enterprise or business does come on into the scene. So currently, right now, for phase 1 and 2, the amount is totaling about $466,000 of development charges, with a total anticipated cost to Woolwich of about I think it's almost $840,000. The only piece that we'd be exposed to is some inflationary increases. There is no risk regarding any alterations. The alignment has been fixed. So if there are things that change, Woolwich would not be open to additional fundings as a result of those changes. We're fixing the alignment to get it to Woolwich's door. And on page, I have it on as page 99, I believe, in the package. It's page 104 in the PDF, but it's an excellent map. It's attachment 2 for Breslau's ultimate urban area. And I think that's a really good illustration of showing the existing settlement limits of Breslau versus potential limits. Appreciating a large portion of that is airport, which would sterilize land, obviously, and really just not allow a lot of tall, high density build in Breslau. But I just wanted to highlight that piece. And also the next page then does show in great detail the phases. So the ultimate solution is to have a trunk sewer connect into the Kitchener wastewater treatment facility. There's an interim solution right now that would see wastewater flows discharge to the Preston facility. And that's illustrated on that map. And that sort of shows phase 1. The trunk sewer was constructed up to Allendale Road. The next phase would be going north again to Middle Block, and that would be driven through by development. So I just wanted council to be aware of those pieces. But with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, or at least attempt to.
Committee members, any questions? Councilor Shantz.
Thank you, through you to Jared. I know at some point was Conestoga Meats really wanting this infrastructure, and is this going to service them as well?
Through you, Mayor or Councillor, or oh my gosh, through you, Chairman Martin, to Councillor Shantz. Yeah, so there are a lot of moving pieces in Breslau. Conestoga Meat Packers is looking for municipal sanitary servicing, and the ultimate solution does have them heading south and ultimately to the Kitchener wastewater treatment facility. So I'd say that is the ultimate solution still. But I can share that there are options being explored right now, depending on how build out happens. And I think that's part of this, is being a bit reactive to what development is coming down into Breslau, and that can change very rapidly depending on the business or what plans they have. So there's a lot of discussion still at play regarding Breslau.
And I think I read in the report that we still need the pumping station upgrade at Shirley Drive or whatever it is, because all of the Hopewell is going that direction.
Yeah, and through you, Chairman Martin, to Councillor Shantz, that is correct. And we've started the negotiation process with the City of Kitchener right now. It is required. Upgrades are required even for our current cross-border servicing agreement. So we know that those upgrades are needed. We're going through that EA process. What we're doing right now is looking at potential ultimate use at that Shirley station. Try to be a bit more effective with the EA process and see if we can maximize our ability at the Shirley station.
Okay, so that won't change any of that. It's still needed whether we put this in or not.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jared. There's a recommendation before us. Is somebody prepared to move it? Patrick? Somebody would second it? Larry? Any further discussion? I'll ask the question. All those in favor? And that's carried. Other business, none. Council reports and updates. What have I missed? I've just asked if council has any reports and updates. Mayor Shantz.
Thank you. Can we go back to the Mill Street patio? I think Mr. Brenneman wanted to clarify something for staff on that request.
Mr. Brenneman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the difficulty with hybrid, it's always important when staff is going to go away and do some work. I just wanted to make sure that there was a consensus among all of council, both in person and on virtual, that there's support for going ahead and doing that work about looking at broadening the nature of a potential Mill Street closure. I think we've always had that best practice that it's not just direction from one member of council, that there is majority consensus to go away and do that work.
Mayor Shantz. Just thumbs up.
Okay,
That's-
thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, are there any reports from council? Councilor Merlehan.
Thank you, through you, Mayor, Chair Martin. I have two just quick little updates, not even updates. There's a tree planting at the Meyer Nature Reserve this Saturday, May 14th, starting at 9. The Trees for Woolwich folks have been doing lots of different tree planting throughout the different neighborhoods, and lots of turnout at those, so that's been great. Also, Woolwich Healthy Communities, they wanted everybody to know they had an event called Run for Office on April 21st. And that's for any would-be politicians that want to run in the municipal election in October 24th. The event is posted for anybody to watch, and there are resources on the healthywoolwich.org website. And if you go healthywoolwich.org, run for office, you'll see all the event material there. Thank you.
Any other updates? Outstanding activity list. Any discussion? Councilor Shantz.
I was going to do an update, but you missed my hand. I just wanted to let council know and also staff to thank them. We have pavement at the Bloomingdale Rec Center. So thank you, everyone.
Long time coming, but it's done. Okay. Is there anything else on the outstanding activity list? Notice of motion, none. Adjournment. Can I have somebody? Patrick and Fred. Thank you, everyone. That brings us to the end of our meeting.